I am. Let's do it.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Creative Workshop with the Artist's Way. I am Max Randolph, and here is Damian Skinner, just to help us figure out how to be better artists.
That's right. That's right. As people start signing in and jumping in, I was wondering today how many people have been here for every one of these classes. I don't know if there's any way to know or not, but
You can comment
yeah,
down below.
yep. And as more people join on, I'm going to ask that a couple of times, and I think it'll be really interesting to see because even when I teach this class live in person, there might be one or two people that make it all the way through. You know.
It's amazing, yeah. Like you mentioned, they drop off like flies, and I don't know if I've seen that just yet, but like it's hard. It's hard to know. Like you
Yeah.
said, it'd be fun to kind of like take the pulse of the audience a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
because it's hard stuff. It evokes so much deep, perhaps resentments,
Yes.
dark thoughts,
Yeah.
things you forgot inspired you, things that you've let go dormant.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the main things that I'm most excited for, like especially through like the Discord part when I'm really hearing from all the other folks,
Yeah.
people who went to that 9 to 5 to make things happen because they had a family. I mean, could you imagine the stress? I
Oh,
mean, I know you have a family of your own.
yeah.
It's stressful to be the sole kind of caregiver for
Yeah.
these little humans,
Yes.
and you're doing it with your art.
Yeah.
And how does your art not get corrupted?
Right. Well, and your mind will use anything as an excuse not to create. So as you go through life and you mature, whether you have a family or you don't, or you have kids or you don't, no matter what you do, every new thing in your life is a new reason not to create. So now I'm married. I got to be serious. I need to grow up. I need to whatever. Now I have kids. Holy crap. I'm irresponsible. I need to stop writing. Hey, hey, I mean, and my dad was a full time artist right until the day he passed. And he had the same thing. I mean, he had grandkids and he's like, well, I guess I should get serious now. Your mind
No,
will find a reason for you not to create if you let it, for sure.
man. And there was a moment today, or sorry, on last week when I took myself on my artist date. Okay, so let me paint you a picture, brother.
Yeah.
So I'm building this giant iron construct of just steel and and copper with copper leads, and I was pouring the base on site at Mission San Antonio where this tree is going, right, and I was waiting for concrete to cure so I can pull the form boards off.
Okay.
And I was out in this I mean, we're talking some of the most beautiful country you could possibly imagine, and there's a creek
Mhm.
down below, and I was like, I'm just gonna go on. I need to go on a nature walk, and there's a lot of snakes out there, so I was vigilant.
Yeah.
But I go and I get to this creek and I just walked around. There's literally not a soul around for miles.
Awesome.
And I built myself, and I was gonna build myself one of my favorite little like wooden boats that I used to make always and
Yeah.
watch it go down the river, and then you make another one.
Yeah.
And just that act of refusal to not grow up. But then I was like, okay, wait a minute. No, I gotta film this and I gotta share this a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I did a little bit of work and create that little video. I'll have to put it up somewhere, just a healthy reminder to
Yeah.
keep people from growing up too
Yeah.
much.
I feel like I saw that. You posted that video, right?
You texted me afterwards. You're like,
Yeah.
dude, I loved it.
I mean, it instantly sparked, and I didn't even know that's what you were doing. It instantly sparked in me a desire to do something novel and just creative, you know.
Just create and just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna get stuck somewhere
Yeah,
and
it
just
is.
disintegrate.
Yeah. It'll disintegrate or somebody's going to find it and it's going to you know, melt their brain that they found something like that, right? I love it.
There'll be now like tales that there's like little pixies out in this neck of the woods.
See, this this is what you and I have in common. We like to create an environment and a lore that makes people wonder. Yeah.
Dude, and that sense of wonder, I mean, people are just starving for it. I feel like, especially right now. And I think, the times are very ripe. The times are very ripe for people to express themselves, to create, because we're just kind of surrounded by a lot of mediocrity. People want stories again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a real quick tangent before we start on chapter 10 on what you're saying. I was just sharing with one of my kids, you know, creating things for the sake of creating releases a sense of wonder into the world, and it brings light. And the darker the world gets, the more we need light. But also, the darker it gets, the brighter the light shines, right? So, I really think our world has entered into a time of chaos, and it's going to be like that. It's a really chaotic time on any platform. So now, when you show up without debating, without arguing, without an agenda, and you've got a little wooden boat, it crashes all those constructs that people are locked into. And
I
it
love
just
that.
brings them back to a sense of being rooted in simple and humanity, you know. Um,
Yes.
and I beg people, anyone that's on here watching it later, man, just creating little things and leaving them laying around, leaving, I used to paint little stones and leave them out in creeks. And I have no idea. Maybe no one ever found them. But my son and I, we walk through creeks all the time. We find stuff, and that's part of that adventure. When you were a kid,
Yes.
you can it's
Absolutely.
just little moments of light that you don't know if they're going to touch people or not. But you feel better. How did you feel after you made that boat?
Oh, like, because that was something I loved so much as a child, just to create, and then, like, of course, in your mind, your eyes are seeing, a little wooden boat just deep,
Sure.
deep, deep, deep down the river, but in your mind, you're hearing Hans Zimmer
Yes, man.
playing Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yep.
You're seeing waves crashing over the
Yep.
railing, and
Cannon
they're
fire.
pulling a rigging, and you're creating these stories, and like for like capitalism, responsibility, anything like that to be just ground out of your soul,
Yeah,
it's the greatest tragedy ever.
it is.
And it's only just a baby's breath away. All you have to do is just step onto the boat
Yeah.
and you're back.
Yeah, that's right, dude. That's beautiful. I love the way you said that. And that's the last thing I'll say about this is all these little things that we create, they really are living metaphors. And what's cool about it, like when we go on our walks, and we're going to talk about walking in chapter 11 today. I've always been a big walker, and when I find things that I pick up, I assign meaning to it. You know,
Cool.
so that's part of the beauty of it is you're just creating a platform for somebody to be able to assign a meaning and be able to get an expression out of it. It's just so beautiful to me to just create and leave it for someone.
Well, it's going to mean something different to everybody.
Yeah,
So it's truly a limitless conduit.
that's right. It really
Oh,
is. And
Damien,
the
I'm
more
so
whimsical
inspired
it
now.
is, the more healing I think it is. You know, Everybody's so serious and so intense, and then someone shows up with some whimsy, and they fall apart. They don't know how to handle it. You know,
It's
it's great.
true.
So
Oh,
let me ask you this: how are you doing on morning pages?
terrible.
Right on.
Damien, I'm falling apart.
It's all right.
I feel so guilty.
Don't.
It, like I feel you remember when like Frodo is getting closer and closer to Mount Doom and the ring
Mm-hmm.
is getting heavier?
Yes.
Like I feel like my pencil's getting heavier as I'm trying to you know, it's
Yeah.
cutting into my hand.
Yeah.
I, well, and I'm just not a linguist.
Yeah.
I wish I was so much that my brain worked that way.
Right.
It doesn't. I'm just shapes. But I've been trying really hard and I've been failing at them. But I did read them,
Good.
and they're all over the place. I
Sure.
feel like I feel like it's my like fifth grader self,
It is.
you know, just rambling.
Now, when you
Almost just
say you're failing, what do you mean? Not showing up and doing it, or not getting through it?
I feel like I'm falling off the wagon. Yeah, like I'll maybe get 1 or 2 pages, if that. Like
Yeah.
I'm not showing up to the repetitive ritual of it, and I
Right.
need to.
Yeah. Well, you like everybody. You're very hard on yourself, and you use really intense language. And our language are the things that really can infect our brain. Morning
Mm.
pages. The person that just asked, morning pages are pretty much the biggest tool that we've been using. You get up in the morning as close as you can to the first thing right away. You sit down and you write longhand 3 pages of just free association. Um,
Yeah, just stream of consciousness almost.
right. And everyone hates it. No one like wakes up and is like, morning pages. it's exercise, it's work, it's a gym for your spirit. And I've never been a big workout guy, but I know from my friends that are that you hit plateaus when you're working out. And all that you have to do is keep showing up. Like,
Yeah,
if you're only getting 2 reps, you only got 2 reps, but you were there, you know.
it's true.
So please try to be kind to yourself and alter that fail language, because that's not a fail. That's a plateau. That's a growth point, you know.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
Failure is, this is stupid shit and I'm never doing it again. And you never
All
go
right,
back to the gym ever for the rest of your life, right? That's the
right.
only way to fail, is to not show up. So
Good point.
just be easy about it. And also remember, not everybody does morning pages for the rest of their lives. I know people that do. Most of them are writers because it comes natural to them, you know
Yes.
um, so it really was meant to be an exercise that she's such a lover, dude. Hi.
Look at her.
It's really meant to be an exercise to help unlock things for you while we're going through this book. And down the road, when you're feeling stagnant or you're feeling kind of weighed down, it's something that you can kind of pull out and use again for a few days.
Yes, and I was thinking about that, right? Like, especially as I'm digesting ideas, as I'm, let also, dude, week 11
Yeah.
is so good. But like when I'm ruminating, right? When I'm letting things grow in the dark,
Yeah.
uh, that I need to get in the habit of using my morning pages for that a
Yeah.
little bit more
Yeah.
because I think my biggest block is like, what do I write about? Here I am again. Oh God, I'm tired. I got my first cup of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I need to give it some direction.
Well, the majority of my morning pages are absolute madness. I mean, I've said that over and over. I mean, this is however many times I've taught this, 20 something times, I can never remember. But the majority of my morning pages will be, this sucks. I'm tired. I really hate this. I'm a hypocrite because I'm telling people to do it. And all I'm trying to do is write larger to get through it. Um,
Right.
but that is getting all of that toxic crap out of your system first thing in the morning. So even if it's not directed, if you just sit there and write a page of cuss words, it's better than not doing anything.
Okay.
It is therapeutic, man. It really is. So
For sure. I'm
now, you
working on it.
mentioned
I'm trying.
chapter 11. Chapter 11 is my favorite chapter in the whole book. Um, you know, I don't know if she did it on purpose, but the author, Julia Cameron, this book follows the hero's journey. You start
I feel
really
like it's on
excited.
purpose.
It's an adventure, and then you get into the dark crap, and a lot of the people that are on the journey with you disappear. They fall off, they go back home, they're so inspired they're spun out and they're creating, and they don't continue on the journey, right? But
Right.
now we're coming back to the Shire a little bit. We're getting back, and we've been changed. We just don't know how we've been changed. We've been challenged. There's some things, new. And when you come back to this point, I feel like chapters 10 and 11 and 12, they're the they're the end. They're perfect third act. You know,
Oh,
um, it's not heavy. We're not sitting
yeah.
here like, think about how your parents made you feel like crap. We're now moving forward, right? So
Totally.
that's
Yeah.
why I was begging you guys, hang in there with me. It's dark for a while, but it gets better. Absolutely. We're all
Yeah,
Lord of the
Grace.
Ring nerds here, man. So
Yeah. So yeah, let's pick up where we left off with week 10. Correct.
yes, week 10. So
All right.
I'm going to skip lightly through week 10. And if there's anybody that's on here that is new, or maybe down the road you watch these out of order, I've got some friends that have started watching these already. And
Oh,
I don't know why, but some people just watch them out of order. You know, um, I, the idea here is that you're reading the whole chapter and that you're going through this yourself. All we're doing when we get together is hitting certain highlights.
right.
So something would speak to you, Max, and it'll speak to me, but we might skip something that, Joe Bob down the street really, really needs. So
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna skim the surface of chapter 10 because chapter 11 is so dense and so packed. We want to spend the majority of the day there, right?
Let's dive in, baby.
All right. So I'm just going to jump straight to page 166. Week 10 is, I always forget the title, Recovering a Sense of Self Protection. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of people feel that the titles of the chapter don't portray what the chapters are like. I've always heard that a lot. And I think it has to do with the interpretation of the words. When she's talking about protection, she doesn't mean safety like you feel safe to create. She's talking about you taking back the reins to where you're not vulnerable to outside influences, that you can just create. And
Mm.
one of the things that I find so fascinating, especially in America, Western cultures, is the addiction to work. And she goes hard into that, man. She really does.
Yeah.
And, if you've been watching this and you've been participating, we already know she gets brutal at times. She's hardcore.
Oh, she doesn't pull her punches.
No,
Absolutely. Well, in the way, at least I remember we always talking about like the way I was raised. Your work is your worth.
that's right. That's right. And I personally believe living in a capitalistic country, whatever you think about that, those of us that are here in America or wherever you might be, if it is that way, um, there's just pros and there's cons. And one of the cons to that is everything is defined, all success and all measurements is defined by how much you have. That
Mm.
and you can't escape it. You can't escape it. And even if you're working against it, it's in our psychology. It's in our DNA to measure from our cars, from our home, from our, what we call success. Let me
Right.
read this. And today I'm going to be reading a good amount. She says, she's talking about, and I can never say this term right, workaholism. I'm just going to say workaholics. Um,
You got to
I
work on
love
that,
this.
dude.
The term I'm working has a certain unassailable air of goodness and duty to it. The truth is, we are very often working to avoid ourselves, our spouses, or our real feelings. You know, anytime I don't want to do something, I don't tell someone I don't want to do it. I tell them I'm working. And there's a secret way to hide in your life by saying I'm working. No one's going to criticize you for working, right? They're just going to go, "Oh, he's a hardworking dude, man. He's always working."
Right.
And a lot of people hide in this. I got to be productive. I got to be, and they're running from something. So since you raised your hand, Max, thank you very
Oh
much.
God, no! I was just adding to the conversation. Don't pick on me. There's other
You
people in the
raised your
class.
hand, dude. It's not my fault. Um,
Oh,
just think about any time that, if you've ever had a time where you're saying you're working, but when you go to work, you don't work. And we all
yeah.
have it. Those are the times where we're typically hiding from something, a splinter that's bothering us. And some people have a meditation practice to where they can sit down and just face that thing and kind of sort through that thing. Some people get it through exercise, some people get it through therapy. But if you don't have a practice to help deal with things that are bothering you, kind of scratching at your consciousness, you'll hide in either work or some form of a drug, some form of activity, just to keep your body busy. Because when we sit still, the storms come in, right? So I don't know if that applies to you. I don't know if there's anything about that you feel like sharing, but do you ever say you're working and not work?
Oh, of course.
Sure.
Because well, like an older version of me,
Yeah.
or a younger version, I guess, if you think
Yeah.
about
Going
it
back in time. Yeah.
chronologically, right? Um, yeah, a different version of me years ago, for sure. I mean, if it was like, I, because I was so full of fire and I was such kind of underdog in it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to waste any time,
Right.
and that was a hard pill for me to swallow. And I watched just my 20s just fly by, even my
Yes.
teens. I
Yes.
had my first job my first business when I was like 14 years old,
Yeah.
and as like my peers were going to parties and things like that. Nope, I'm either too exhausted from work or I gotta work.
That's right. Yeah. It's you learn that from probably your family. That's where we
Mhm.
usually get that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, and as a result, I honestly, I'm not kidding. I can barely tell you what I did in my 20s. You know,
Right?
um, people, I mean, I know that I got a lot done, but at the same time, I didn't understand that output is not my measurement of success. My measurement of success is how I've developed myself, you know?
Mm,
And so I only learned by burning out. I put myself in the hospital. I was in the hospital for a week and a half with pneumonia from just working and working and I mean, I worked myself to a nub, you know.
yeah.
Um, that's the only thing that slowed me down. And here's another great part that she talks about here. She says that for most block creatives, fun is something they avoid almost as much as they do their creativity. Why? Fun leads to creativity. It leads to rebellion. It leads to feeling our own power, and that is scary.
Woo!
So one of the things that I love about you, Max, is yes, you're a creator, but you also know how to play. And we talked about that last week. You know, you get a good amount of playing, like the boat that you made. You know,
So I had to kind of take that back. So it's very interesting. So a lot of my work requires me to be focused and just bearing down on that piece of work for sometimes a year.
yeah,
I can't afford to get inspired by something else because then I'm truly miserable working on what I have to be building right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
And all I want to do is go do that.
yeah,
So there's been so many times in my life where I have to do that. And I'm slowly recovering from that, if that
sure,
makes any sense. And
yeah,
I'm still trying to do it more.
yeah,
Um, like there's another point that I hope I remember to make actually in in chapter 11.
gotcha.
But yeah, it's hard because it's scary because once you get inspired, you can't unsee it. At least I couldn't.
No, you can't.
You can't take that back.
No, this is a major issue for me. Major,
Mm,
major, major issue for me is
okay.
I'll get inspired, and next thing you know, I don't want to finish the script that I've been working on for years. I'm starting a
Yeah.
whole new script. It's a different genre. It's on Mars, man. And my last one is a Civil War epic western. And
Classic.
I get splintered. I call it fragmented. I get
Mm.
fragmented from being so inspired. And I I can't say that I've ever found a quick solution to that. There is some discipline. Yes, squirrel. Oh my god. Um, Personally for me, and everybody's a little different in this. In work that I'm not being paid to do, um, and I think all creatives have the shiny object squirrel. Like, look,
Yeah.
everyone's like ding, ding, ding. I mean, that's
Right.
all us. Um, you have work that you're being paid for, and you have work that you're not. In
Mm,
the work that I'm not, I try to follow the inspiration. I feel that that is the spirit guiding me. So at any given point, I might have like 9 scripts halfway written. But then what I've learned over the years is when I'm in a meeting, a business meeting, and someone asks me what I have, I'll have all of these things that they're not done yet, but they're all in development. And somebody
mm.
will go, I'll pay for you to finish that one. Now I go into discipline mode. I put the blinders on and I finish it. So I've learned kind of this dance with myself. Like, I'm going to go play. I'm going to create characters. I've got werewolf movies and westerns and all that. And I crash them all together and all that. But I won't finish them until somebody's like, I want to do something with that.
I
And
like that.
it's helped me kind of get best of both worlds,
Well,
you
and
know?
especially with, I mean, one thing I do love and I want to do more of more often,
Yeah.
especially as like YouTube channel grows and stuff, is smaller projects.
Yeah.
Stuff you don't have to be with me for
Right.
6 to 8 to 12 months,
Right.
18 months even,
Yeah.
just doing quicker things because yeah, I could only imagine when you're working on a script for like a year or two,
Oh, yeah.
if,
Yeah.
how do you stay focused? How do you stay like inspired on that when all these other fun things are going
Yeah.
on?
But see, guys like you that were raised on a farm and on like a ranch kind of mentality, it's buckle down and be
Yeah.
disciplined, right?
Right.
Now, again, we're not talking about commercial art necessarily. We're talking about just, and this is something I feel like most people forget. You are an artist before you are a business person. So you got to find a way to play with all of your inspiration and not just live in that discipline. Today I'm working on this.
You
You
know,
know,
that is something I really want to
yeah.
learn
Well,
or get better at
yeah,
because
because
there's
I think
elements of that.
I think you've got to. I mean, I only know you a little bit, but about your work, but I think you have a good sense of play. You know, it's like the YouTube channel gives you a chance to play,
Oh, and I
right?
love it.
Yeah, and then you got your D&D night that gives you a chance to play,
Well, and
right?
it's great too because I'm not allowed to like I've like put you know I put the curtain down like where I that's not work. You
Yeah,
know, maybe I'll film the model building, the funny little
right,
models I'll build for it,
right.
but that's something that I just purely enjoy.
Yeah. Well, and
So
it's
that's
always
I see
interesting.
that.
It's always interesting when you look at famous actors or directors or whatever, and then when you research them, you find out they're also prolific painters or sculptors, and no
Mm,
one knows it. No one's ever heard about it. And there seems to be this duality that needs to you need to have both pistons kind of shooting. You need to be over here just creating and it's yours. You're not sharing it with the world. You're not turning it into money. You're not trying to sell it. And that empowers you to stay focused to do the other part, you know.
right.
So I really encourage people to have their own private creative practice. If it's drawing, if it's comics, if whatever you're into, and just keep it to yourself. You don't have to give everything to the world, you know. Um,
Right. Well, and like the term artist is a profession, right? Like
yeah,
everything that I create has to be marketable, has to
yeah,
be, you know, it has to be making money. Like it's a relief to not put that much pressure on everything you
that's right.
build.
And that is capitalism leaking its way into the artist heart. That is what that is. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I'll be sitting here coming up with something goofy and whimsical, and then I'll be like, I bet I could sell this on Etsy. And
Right.
then I'll be like, I bet I could reproduce this and sell like 40 of these on. And next thing you know, I've created a whole business around this whimsical thing that was nothing more than to express myself.
Right.
Right. So all this kind of falls into that workaholic mindset. You know, when we say workaholic, we picture the doctor or the attorney working nonstop. I'm talking about us. I'm talking about
Mm,
creatives who always feel they have to be working. Working. Working is there's you've never said I need to work and you felt excited. You might be excited to go do some of the work, but the very word working carries a heaviness to it. It carries obligation, right?
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
that's the furthest from the creative spirit. And in the last 20 years, I have watched people get inspired. It's a cycle. They get inspired, then they create something, and we're going to talk about this in chapter 11. Then people want more of that thing, and now that's all they do. And then they burn out. And then the people that loved them for it, they're like, they're old news. And they abandon you anyway, right?
Right.
So there's only a few things that I really ask people to really get into in this chapter. On page 167, there's a quiz. There's some questions that I think everybody should just glance at. I promise you, you won't even get halfway through it before you start feeling picked on again.
Oh, I
Yeah,
felt super called out. I was just like, oh God.
yeah, yeah. It gets awkward quick. You know, I I will call myself out in the fact that I have mastered the art of using procrastination. And we could have a whole course on procrastination. But what it is for me is because I am such a uh, adrenaline junkie. You know, I'm such a I need that feeling of oh my god, I'm going to let these people down. So if I've got a year to do something left to my own devices, I'll do it in the last 2 weeks
Mm,
because it's so intense and I'm so scared I'm going to let these people down. It fires me up, and I'm firing on all. I've had to learn how to kind of undo that.
yeah.
And that's part of that workaholic mindset. She talks about that in that quiz. Um,
Interesting. Yeah, that under pressure.
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a t-shirt. All right.
Pro
That's a
in
t-shirt. I
procrastination.
put the pro in procrastination. Yeah, I'm getting a bumper sticker and putting that on my car. That's
Yeah, no kidding. See,
yeah.
listen to you. That needs to be a T-shirt. We can make T-shirts. Yeah, there
Constant.
you go.
Constant. Yeah. I mean, you and I met by talking about merchandise,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's such a part of my thinking that everything is all of my value is for sale. What a
right.
horrible, horrible thing, right? Everything that I am great at, everything I'm ever inspired by, I need to turn into money, you know?
Well, because it's really important and you need it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's of anybody's like fault
Right.
that they try to be marketable. Everything is content, or
Absolutely.
they try to be successful because there's a lot of pressure to be able to make ends meet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for me, and I'm only speaking for myself, anytime I'm going through kind of a dry spell financially, because I am self-employed, I don't, I work for myself. Um, I'll notice that novel idea to make money skyrockets because I really feel I need to prove that I'm doing something, right?
Yeah,
So everything I see becomes a business idea because not just because I need the money, which is true, but because I feel like I need to show my wife, show my kids that I'm not just sitting at home being an artist and not making money, right?
absolutely.
So it's a logical trap. It's not crazy, but it is a
No.
trap all the same. Um,
Oof.
Now I want to move just for time's sake.
Yeah.
She talks about fame, and this really ties with what I was just saying. I don't know about anybody else. No, most people know not to say, I want to be famous. Most people won't say that. Younger
Right.
generations with the influencers and all that, they'll a little bit more right to it. But I love that.
Oh
Yep,
yeah.
exactly. Um, Let me read this about fame. She said, fame encourages us to believe that if it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen. Of course, it is fame. Fame is not the same as success. And in our true souls, we know it. But fame, it is addictive and it's always leaving us hungry. And here's the thing, I love this. Fame is a spiritual drug. Fame
Ooh.
is a spiritual drug. So I don't know if anybody watching now or obviously in the future has had a brush with fame, but it is like crack. It gets in your mind, it gets in your blood. You can feel it when I'm sure, Max, you've experienced the amount of love you get online. It
And there's no way to like kind of protect yourself from the way it makes you feel,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, especially so like I had some support by like, well, I'll just tell you, like my mom was a huge proponent of anything I did. I'm almost like to the point of like too much support, you know?
yeah,
And then my old man was the complete opposite. And in his own way, right? I'm sure he has his own reasons.
sure.
Um, but getting that reception and that much positivity, all of that was kind of a slap in the face of all the naysayers. It's like, yeah, it felt good. Like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I actually am onto something. I'm not a loser. I'm not a failure.
right,
Like
right.
it just it hit so many of my right nerves, and now I definitely have grown to kind of guard
Yeah, yeah,
against those kind of manic highs.
yes.
You
Well
know.
said. Because that's really what it is. It is very manic because
Mm.
you will get a lot of praise and you can literally feel your scalp tingle. Like, whoo! I mean, it's a chemical drop. It really is, man. I don't know if anyone's ever jumped out of a plane or if you've ever done anything, but man, you will get a spike. When I won at a film festival, I thought I
Hmm.
was gonna pass out from the rush of chemicals, all those good chemicals. I was like, ah, it was
You're
incredible.
like back in the day, like when they had like cassettes, the
Yes.
dude that's in front of the speaker just like holding
Yeah.
on.
Sitting in the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we all know the stereotypical problem with fame when it goes away, right? But there's a bigger issue, I think, because I don't want to talk like, oh, all of us are going to have the fame of like a Jim Carrey kind of fame. Let's talk about YouTube fame. Let's talk about, you're booked for the next 4 years kind of fame. That's a little closer to get to, and it's a little more practical. And I'm glad Jenna said that because Jenna, you and we're always vibing somehow.
Yeah, we're
I
just
love
in
it.
sync always.
Yeah, that's where I was going. When I was a kid, I was a licensed ordained traveling preacher at 14 and 15 years old. I went and spoke to adults. 2,000 adults would sit there and listen to me as a kid. Now, that's a whole other subject with a lot of weirdness. But let me tell you, when your teen years are spent with adults telling you that you're incredible and you're this and you're that, and then that goes away, I
Ooh,
had no self image. I had no value in myself because there was nobody there telling me what I was. Fast
yeah,
forward, I'm a filmmaker. I start getting that again. And it was like somebody in recovery taking that drink. And you hear them say it's like a warm blanket. You ever heard a drug addict say it's like a warm blanket or a hug?
absolutely.
It's crack. It's crack to your soul. And she says that it is a spiritual addiction. Now, fame is something I think that I don't think it's wrong to want it because it's a powerful way to have influence.
Mm,
You can use it for many many positive ways, and a lot of people do. But for our purposes, most creatives get derailed. The idea is that we are working with the creator to be creatives, and we're following our instincts, we're following our passion, and we continue to evolve. The minute fame hits, you stop evolving because
mm,
do you really think that I'm going to go make an action film, win a bunch of film festivals, make a bunch of money, and now I'm going to go make a drama? No, my next movie is going to be what? An action film. And then
right.
my next one's an action film. And next thing you know, I've been 20 years doing the same thing. Now, that might be great for some people. To me, I look at that as stagnation, right?
Well, it's a
We
prison of your own
stagnate when we
creation.
get famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. That's really interesting.
And
Now, is there
there's a great
anything?
quote. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, no, no. Go ahead.
I'm looking for it here. Oh, fame is really a shortcut for self-approval.
Oh man, she just dropped those hammers
I
on
know
us.
it. I know it, dude. She just kind of walks up to you and shivs you a few times and
Yeah,
then
it's like,
walks
oh,
off,
gotta
right?
go.
Yeah, like a prison yard. You're like,
Yeah,
ah, God,
exactly.
hey, hey. So, for time's sake, I want to move on into competition. And I'm just going to read one thing that she says about competition. And again, anyone that's watching, you need to read this. I mean, I am not doing this chapter justice. I'm just skipping a few points. But
It was big.
when we're when we're talking about competition, she says this questions like how do we measure ourselves? These allow us to ignore more useful questions like did I work on my stuff today? Or did I make a deadline to mail it off or do what I needed to do? These are the real questions. So in summary, what she's saying is when you engage in competition, if I was like, Max is crank, every time I see a YouTube video from Max, I'm like, dude, he's killing it. And I am just nowhere near that. Be careful. Be
Yeah.
careful because your mind starts making the comparison. Why is Max got this and I don't? Why does Susie have this and I don't? And then you start beating yourself up. But here's the thing, forget the feel bad, which is bad enough. She says something I never thought of until I read this book. It's so perfectly deceptive. It fills your brain with all of the wrong questions. So you cannot ask the right questions. Like,
Mm,
did I show up and create today? Because the only answer to any of those questions is, am I putting in the time?
yeah.
Am I putting out work? Max is where Max is because Max puts out the work. Max puts out the videos. Max does this. If I'm not there, don't waste the time. Don't let that seep into your mind, this sense of competition with other creators. There is
Oh,
no competition.
And it's just such a toxic thing for your soul. I spent a little bit of time doing that, especially my former years. Just when it came to like success, whatever opportunity,
Yeah.
like just I think you have to in your development at
Yeah.
some point, right?
Yeah.
So luckily now, definitely outgrown that. And but I remember hearing an analogy that helped me recover from that is you can't win a race while looking at
No.
your competitors. You need to be looking at ahead. You
You'll
got your
wipe
own
out.
journey going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just simply cannot compare yourself to anybody because you're gonna have your day,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's just really toxic to your mind, spirit, and
Yeah.
creativity to compare yourself to
You
other
know,
people.
there's been a through line in this entire class of something that you've brought up, and I love it, and that is there are things that we started doing that we don't need to do anymore, right? We start
Mhm.
off needing to prove to our parents. We start off needing to prove, and there's competition, and again, in a capitalistic world, competition is key. You have
Yes.
to have competition. You aren't growing unless you're competing. However,
Right.
however, just because that worked for you for a certain period of time does not mean it will always work.
There it is.
And I want to be
Because
clear.
sometimes it's a huge incentive,
It is. It is.
right?
And
It's
it
a huge
works for
incentive.
a period of time, but it's not meant to be your source. We're,
I like that.
this conversation is about source. This conversation is about baseline connecting with the creator and creating and taking care of ourselves as creators. I can get a lot done when I've waited to the last minute, but that does not mean that that's the way I should be creating. You see what I'm saying? Some
Yeah.
people thrive on I've never been a competitive person. Never. To a fault. To a fault. I played football and I was the guy out there helping everybody up. Like, hey, you did all right. My coaches like hated me for it. I'm not a
Ah,
competitive dude. Um,
yeah.
so people need different stimulus to get up off their ass and do something,
Right.
right? So, but once you're up off that ass, you need to get to a more balanced place. That's not competition and proof, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and you're creating from a dark place,
that's right. That's
you
right.
know.
And your art will reflect it. Your art will
Mm.
reflect, and I will end with this. If you're competing with your analogy, you're running and you're looking, I ran track. I can remember you don't want to look at someone or you're going to wipe out. It's funny. All of a sudden, when you look this way, your feet do this. And you completely pass, you're going to bust it in front of everyone. The
Busted.
artist, the analogy of that is if you're competing, you subconsciously start trying to recreate what they created,
Yes.
and it infects your art. It's a disease that spreads through your art, and next thing you know, you're a bitter, angry artist because you're not creating you; you're creating Max.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So none of us got on this class so we could be knockoff artists. We're here to create something that's pure and express it, not a version of somebody else's stuff. So,
Right on.
all right, let's move to chapter 11. Like I said, I want to just hit 10, and I'm going to ask you if it's all right. We've tried to keep this to an hour, but today we got to go a little bit later. This
Do your thing. You're
this
holding the reins,
chapter
baby.
is this is the good stuff. So, recovering a sense of autonomy, and I'm just going to read a lot from this chapter because she says it better than I ever could. Eh, An artist's cash flow is typically erratic. I don't know if anyone can agree with that or not,
Oh,
but my whole life I can say there's good times and there's bad times. The idea of I have to free myself from determining my value and the value of my work by my work's market value. Here we
oh,
go. Page one. Page one. If your value of your art, if the value of your art is tied to the market value of your art, you are already shipwrecked and you don't know it. You you're taking on water, you are Titanic, You have no idea, and you are not going to last. And my dad used to say the worst thing that ever happened to him was the first time he got paid to make art.
Wow.
And real quick, just to give a sense here, my dad, born in a tobacco farm in North Carolina. I mean, poor, 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 right?
Yeah.
He went to the Air Force, and in the Air Force, they gave him, Disney used to do this, they gave him a grant to go to animation school, Disney Animation School, which is now Caltech. And
What?
my dad turned that down. It was a free ride. He turned that down because somebody paid him, get ready, to paint a Santa Claus face on the grocery store window during Christmas. And my dad had kids, and he thought, that's a long shot. That's me being arrogant. That's all this. My dad lived the next 40 plus years of his life being a sign painter, which is fine if
Yeah.
that was your passion. But he always, I used to go to work with him when I was a kid, and he used to say it all the time. Worst thing I ever did was get paid for my art. Worst thing
Wow.
he had a broken spirit for the rest of his life.
Oh,
And
so sad.
it's the connection to market value. And I beg artists to understand, getting paid for your art is such a wonderful, validating feeling. And it's another drug. It's another drug. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying you shouldn't. I mean, I think everybody on here would say one of their goals is to be a full time paid
Yeah.
artist.
It's a huge necessity,
It
right? You
is.
know.
It is. So we're not saying they would have paid him, but he would have had to go through college first, and he had kids, and he couldn't see how to make that work.
Right. It was the pay that he was focused on for
Right.
his family versus what he could make in like 10 years,
That's right.
like,
Right.
and I could totally understand like how he would have felt selfish for looking out for his own future,
Yeah.
which would eventually made you guys great income.
Absolutely.
But it's the low hanging fruit, right?
That's right. And when I had started having kids, I stopped making movies. You know, there's something that happens heavy around having kids where you just feel your life is over and you better do everything right now you can to make money. And
Right.
we could spend a whole night having that conversation, but just to keep it focused, I'm just asking if so often our goals become a drug. You got
Mhm.
to have goals, you got to have a direction. Being paid for your art is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. It's one of the top best feelings I've ever had in my life.
Well, as capitalism goes, that's
That's right.
that external validation.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
value.
Yeah. I mean, imagine standing on a set blowing up a bunch of pyrotechnics, and you're the director and you've been paid thousands of dollars to do this. You're in
Right.
the 1.1% of society to have that kind of experience. But then I spent the rest of my life measuring my value by that. And
Mm.
that's the problem because, as we all know, basic economics, market shifts, things change. You look at all these documentaries, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, all these people who created these universes. You
Yeah.
know, they were broke as hell for long periods of time.
Yeah.
And they all talk about now that they had made it and they were consistently making money from their IP, they all look back talking about how hard they were on themselves when they weren't making money from their art. It's that loser mentality right?
Yeah.
And we're all wondering if we're just deceiving ourselves. We're all wondering, I'm 40, about to be 48. I wonder if I'm still in like a cover band, hoping I'm going to get picked up one day. I'm still doing wedding. I'm the wedding singer,
Right.
right? These things kind of run in the back of your mind. So, Max, I wrote down in my book to ask you this.
Ooh.
You are you're a successful artist. You're paid to do what you do. How do you delineate your value as an artist from what you're paid?
That's hard. I think I'll be working on that.
Yeah.
till the day I die. To be perfectly honest, because I think that's gonna be a constant struggle because it's very difficult for me to put internal value, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easy. Oh gosh, this is tough. So Damien, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I feel like I'm still in the process of learning that because that market value is my personal value for I mean, especially for the longest time. Now I'm starting to really trying to discover an internal value, a sustainable value,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and you know, and that's a hard thing because I feel like art, until it's observed, it isn't it like the act of observation is the act of a beholder, an audience. That's what makes it art
Yeah.
to me a little bit. So it's very difficult for me to create something in my my sanctum of solitude,
Yeah.
and and then for me to put untangible value on that.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm still stuck in, because life is really expensive,
Yeah.
and I've never been extremely comfortable, if that makes any sense. And
Yeah.
I constantly have always been just trying to achieve that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's totally a drug, and it's that external validation when we all need, but I especially
Yeah.
internally need to create that validation for myself, to where
Yes.
it doesn't matter if it sells for pennies to the dollar, what have you. I
Right.
still loved that piece.
Yeah.
So it's a journey, man.
It is. And I would say, there are practicums. This whole book is about the spiritual path, right? Now,
Yeah.
spiritual paths tend to disappear when you can't pay your electric bill. I can tell you that firsthand. Like, this
You
is
bet.
all well and
Yeah.
good while I'm broadcasting on $1,000 iPhone and sitting in an air conditioned room.
Right.
But you let the tax collector start circling around and see how well I meditate on my art. You know,
Right.
there's a there's something that kicks in, and I don't want to be all pie in the sky and not super practical, because I think a true spiritual practice is practical.
I
If
like that.
if a spiritual practice does not work all day every day in the shit, so to speak, then it's not a
Yeah.
spiritual practice. uh, Jesus literally taught that. He really did.
Mm.
So one of the things that I look at is, again, I just have this piston idea that's always worked for me. I need to
Okay.
create for myself. She has this great quote: if I have the need to write a poem, I need to write that poem whether it sells or not.
Right.
And if we would show up and put pen to paper every day, or brush to canvas, or hammer to anvil, if we would just show up every day, we have enough time to create all of it.
And that was a big one for me. This chapter 11 just rocked.
Yeah.
It just rocked so good because and I feel like so many of us have experienced what I'm about to talk about, and either shove it away and you get into the workaday world, you get into construction, you become a pipe fitter,
Yep.
whatever you end up doing, you'll go to your family's law firm, what happens. And but I remember being a kid and feeling physical pain. I still feel it sometimes. No, luckily now I'm like constantly being creative and constantly imagining things and building. But I remember being a kid and like being in school and feeling physical pain when I all of a sudden got an idea and I couldn't
Yes.
do it. I couldn't
Yes.
act on it.
Yeah.
I remember how devastating that was. And when you're trying to be a responsible adult, because you got bills to pay, you have commissions, you have scopes of work that are becoming out of date, you have deadlines. It's really difficult not to act on those still.
It is. It
Just the
is.
silly, like, I just want to make a wooden boat and send it down the river.
Yeah. Well, and I believe we can get to a place, especially with technology today being the way it is. I think we can get to a place where whimsy can be part of how we make money. I
Mm,
mean, your videos, while I know they take a lot of time because I do the video thing, um, it you have found a way to incorporate it into your work. I don't feel
and
that it's a distraction from your work.
it's brand new, and I'm starting to realize this. I mean, like, seriously, reading this book, it couldn't have been. a more perfect time
Yeah.
because everything's in complete transition, influx.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's well, it's also about sharing that inspiration, sharing that joy, and trying to reinvigorate people's passions,
Yeah.
which has become a huge passion of mine. So it's all kind of working out.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
It is. And if you didn't try that stuff, you never would have found this. We don't ever
No,
have the advantage of seeing the entire path. That's not an adventure. That's going through the grocery store. I mean, there's no way to know, and you've got to try. And this is something that I've been pretty vulnerable in this class, but I will say something that I've always been really good at is being willing to try something and let it go if it's not working for me. And
it's very brave.
a lot of people have a problem with that. A
Yeah.
lot of people like I started something and I'm going to finish it. It doesn't matter if it costs me everything. And pros and cons, but here she's talking about something that I want to make sure everyone's grabbing onto. If you get inspired 10,000 times a day, you need to try to create those things you're inspired by. But that doesn't mean all of it's going to be marketable.
Right.
And that's the problem. The most prolific creators I know that make serious money doing this kind of stuff, putting their work out there, screenwriters, whatever, for every one that's sold, they've got 20 that nobody will ever read.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, we see these pinnacles of creation as they just don't miss.
Yeah,
It's home runs.
silly.
And they can't fail if they tried. You don't see all of the bulk, the volume of work that no one else sees. I need to get better at that.
Yeah.
Because all I want to do is just crack. I want to de-skin baseballs,
Yep,
crack out of
all
the
home
park.
runs. All home
Just nothing
runs.
but home runs.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Well, and
Oh.
Stephen King, anybody would agree that Stephen King, one, is a prolific writer,
Hmm.
two, has put out an ungodly amount of work, and three, some of it sucks. Like straight up. Like people will tell you, you can't talk about Stephen King without talking about some of the turds from Stephen King, right? Now,
But we still love Stephen King all the
because he
same.
keeps showing up, because he keeps putting work out. And yes, the critics and the New York publishing scene, they might criticize his work, but the awesome the
Great.
the
I can
the
see it.
the average reader forgives a bad book if you've put out 50 great books,
Right.
right? Steven Spielberg he went through a really crappy season in the late 90s, mid 2000s, man. There were some movies that he made that just, and he talks about it. And I encourage everyone to read as many biographies, autobiographies as you can of anyone that you respect, because
Hmm.
you learn. David Mamet and Fincher and all these people that are like gods to me, they talk about being depressed, not being able to finish their work. They talk about turning to alcohol and drugs. Stephen King drank a bottle of NyQuil every night for 20 years. He admitted that on Oprah. 20 years. Now you know where some of these movies came from, dude. He
Oh
was
yeah.
out of his mind. It he was not prolific just sitting there. He had to go drink cough syrup in order to get into that bizarre place.
Yeah.
So it we all look at these people, and you got to remember, we're only seeing what their managers and what their agents are allowing to be released. They have a system of they have filters, and
Yeah.
people will be like, Steven, this is never going to make it. They're never going to
Right.
make Steven Spielberg had to raise money to make Saving Private Ryan, and nobody would fund it. This is the dude that had already made E.T., he'd already produced Goonies, he had already done all these incredible movies from our childhood. Nobody would give him money, you know?
Unreal.
So don't fall for the marketing. Don't fall for that prolific creator, that songwriter that's always hitting it, right? Um, Let me read this. This is a whole paragraph, and I'm sorry, I try not to read long chunks, but this is
You're good.
important.
And then there's one question I want to get to right after.
Okay, great. Since my artist is a child, the natural child within, I must make some concessions to its sense of timing. Some concessions does not mean total irresponsibility. What it means is letting the artist have quality time, knowing that if I let it do what it wants to do, that's the key, that
Mm,
it will cooperate with me in doing what I need to do. This is that piston idea.
right.
So remember, your artist is a kid. Your artist is a third grader.
Right, right.
And you're
It's
telling
true.
that third grader to file taxes.
Oh, kill me. Like
Yes.
taxes, dude, don't say the T word, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a cuss word for sure. And what we do, and Max, especially people like you that have a strong work ethic, we
Mm.
drag our child into getting shit done.
And
And
it's
then our
hell.
child goes, eh,
Yeah,
and pouts, right? And that's what we call being blocked. When all
yeah,
of a sudden we just feel lethargic, depressed, I get angry. You know, when
yep,
I'm blocked, when I'm pissy and angry,
yeah,
right? And I'm insulting and I'm really judgmental. Oh my God, I get
yeah,
judgmental. So,
100%. Just dark, just real dark.
what we're learning and what this whole book is really about is learning this duality.
Yeah,
You've got this little child that wants to play. This child wants to make a boat and send it down a river, and it doesn't need a reason. It doesn't give a shit what you think. It doesn't care. It doesn't even care if that boat sinks 3 feet from now. I want to put a boat in this little river.
yep.
But your adult
So
brain, go ahead.
no, yeah, so, yeah, because like yeah, we have our adult responsibilities. We got taxes are due,
Right.
but then we are our third grader, our truly inner visionary.
Yeah.
That sounds like the last thing we want to do.
Right.
And there was an excellent question. Let me check this out real quick. Yeah, there it is. All right, so yes, how do you get into your best state of flow? The procedures of your work. This is an excellent question. I think this ties perfectly
It
what we're
does.
talking about.
It does.
Is recovering that sense of play.
Yeah.
So I feel like my sense of self changes almost on a like on a daily process.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll be, hardcore dwarf from Erebor listening to Windrose. Just let's battle the forges and like strike the head. Just
Right.
really just like let's go. Aggressive,
Yeah.
positive, and like let's kick some ass today. Sometimes, I'm tiptoeing through the tulips, getting flowy, getting whimsical. I'm
Yep.
imagining wonderful, delicate, balanced spaces and things. But a lot of that is when my inner child is happy, when he's alive, when he's able to play. So a lot of my like some of my procedures getting going in the morning, make myself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, and I'll just play some Minecraft. I'll do
Yeah.
something
Yep.
else. I'll do like puzzle games, wake him up, make sure he's got something in his hand, something to like kind of chew on, and then I'm slowly gearing up. Because there's been times in my life where I'll just like get into the shop at 6 a.m. right at the break of dawn, and I'm just upset. I'm not enjoying my work
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
I like a routine. I like a little routine, and I'll play. I'll do something what could be very easily seen as immature.
Sure.
But yeah, I'll just go and find some joy in something,
Yeah.
and then I'll get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
hope
we're
that
and
answers your
there's a
question.
that's no, that's perfect. There's a part in this chapter that talks about creating these routines. We're going to get to that, and I'm actually going to show
Ooh,
you guys my routine. Um, the the thing that ties in that paragraph that I was reading was most of us feel like if we give way to that creative child, that means because that creative child wants to be irresponsible and whimsy and just play, that
they're a kid.
means that's what we're going to be all the time, and we've never tried it. We've never tried it. We're assuming that the little kid's going to make us lazy, late for work, da 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 da. But what actually happens, and I can attest to this 100%, if you give time to the child will give time to the adult. If you
Love
don't
that.
ever let the child play, you're going to have to drag that child's ass through everything. So if I let my son play for a little bit and then I tell him we got to go run some errands, he's happy. If
Yeah.
we wake up and I go get in the car, we got to go. He's going to be a difficult kid the whole day. And most of us have never tried it because we are too busy producing, and we think that we're gonna, just be these lazy people.
Right.
Um, as an artist, I must be very careful to surround myself with people who nurture my artists, not people who try to overly domesticate it for their own good.
Hmm.
Many people, and I just want to hit this and move past it because we've said this a lot. A lot of people, and they mean well, they're trying to domesticate your creativity. They want to help you. Max, you're so prolific. I think if you just did this, this, and this, you'd be able to make money. Or if I just did this, this, and this, you would just, and they mean well. But
Right.
what we lose sight of is all of the artists that we respect. If any of you have a vision board or you've got pictures of people that you respect, every one of those people were at some level a rebel and they did what they felt, and that made them the badass artist that you love. My
Yeah.
favorite artist of all times is David Bowie. I've
Oh
got pictures
yeah.
of Bowie all over the place, and I grieved his passing like he was my own dad. And that man consistently did what the F he wanted to do. And he lost money. He was in fashion. He was an actor. He was a right. People don't even know he was a professional boxer. He did all kinds of amazing things. He did what he wanted. That's why his art attracted so many people because he was
Yeah.
truly free. And we want
Wow.
that freedom. Don't let people
That's
domesticate your art.
don't let people domesticate your art. Yeah. That's that's incredible.
Yeah. And you just gotta, again, nobody comes in trying to wreck you. They're all trying to help.
Of
But
course.
I mean, let's be honest. If you're not gonna be bold, you're not gonna be an artist. And at the end of the day, for me, Max, there's been times when I just didn't have the courage. I'm being honest. There's been
Oh,
times when I just did not have the courage to do what I know I needed to do and to be that thing. And I paid a price for it, you know?
yeah.
Um,
I totally
there's
relate.
Yeah, and I think all creatives can. Um, as an artist, yes, I love you too. As an artist, I write whether I think it's a good idea or not. I shoot movies other people may hate. Ouch. I sketch bad sketches to say I was in this room, I was happy. It was May and I was meeting somebody I wanted to meet. As an artist, my self-respect comes from doing the work. This is getting to the core. This is the DNA. A lot of people that are not putting out work, they've lost respect for themselves.
Man,
Does,
heavy.
does that resonate?
It resonates with a lot of people I've seen struggle with their
Yeah,
creativity
yeah,
and not, like when we talk about shadow artists.
yeah, yeah.
And it's really sad.
It is. And we can help those shadow artists by being bold. That's the thing you
Yeah.
have to understand. I mean, Max, when I met you, you had a community, you had these things, but look, over time, you are inspiring people to get back up and start creating again.
Well, and like, okay, so like, okay, you're at the eighth grade dance, right? And you
Oof.
got the boys and you got the girls, and everyone's just like, "Oh my
Yep.
god!"
Yep.
And it takes maybe one or two people just to get out there and start
Yes.
awkwardly dancing a little
Yep.
bit, and then all of a sudden everyone comes in.
Yep.
It just, you blaze a trail
Yep.
and you show you can do it.
Yep.
Like, the ground is not just going to fall out from under your feet.
Yep.
It might be hard,
Yep.
but you can do it if you
Yep.
show up.
And
And
there's never as many critics as you think there's going to be. You know, uh, when I was a kid, I didn't understand why creative people were always weird. Why they were always dressed so strange. Now I understand. I understand. If I dress kind of strange and if I add something or whatever I express myself, I now feel like I have put myself in a state to be bold. And not everybody needs that. But there have been times in my life where, dude, I was such a coward. I had to just do something crazy just to get out of my skin and be bold again.
That sounds like an amazing practice to add to your week.
It is.
Artist dates, morning pages, bold. What help me out here? Bold
Bold
something.
dress, bold expression, you know.
Do something bold.
Yeah, let your freak flag fly, baby. That's exactly
I
right.
love that placebo. Yes. Well, and sometimes it's just saying hi to a stranger if they're
Yeah.
like look like they're I don't know. That's one of the things I love to do is
Yes.
just
Oh
reach
yeah.
out to some stranger, and
Yeah.
when the cops come, you run off. But no,
That's
I'm
right.
just
Yeah, they'll
teasing.
find you. Don't worry about it.
Be
Um,
be weird. Life's too short.
and that's it sounds too easy. The entire city of Austin is, all about being weird. But then look at the amount of artists coming out of Austin.
Right.
There's a reason why weird works. Let me read this. I kill myself, strong language here. I kill myself when I fail to nurture my artist child because I'm acting like somebody else's idea of an adult. The,
Oh,
the more I nurture my artist child, the more adult I'm able to appear. See, what she's trying to get us to understand is if you'll embrace the creativity, you will be the mature person. It's not going to be embrace it and now you're this immature kid. That's not
which
what
is
happens.
yeah, which seems completely counterintuitive, completely split.
Yes. When we are not creating, artists are not always very normal or very nice to ourselves or to others. Creativity is oxygen for our souls. Cutting off creativity makes us savage. We react like we're being choked.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
telling you, man, I am mean as a pit bull when I'm not creating. I mean, nobody likes me when I'm not creating. Uh, to be an artist is to recognize the particular, to appreciate the peculiar. To be an artist is to risk admitting that much of what is money, property, and prestige strikes us as just being silly.
mm,
So I'm reading a lot, but I do, and I know we've been going for a minute. I want to unpack that real quick because
yeah,
we only have one more class. So I want to really make sure we get this. Most artists that I know, if they're being honest and not afraid of being judged, they feel that the whole pursuit of stuff is ridiculous.
right,
It feels empty, frivolous, and pointless. But we have to go get stuff. And so we're angry, we're depressed, we're all these negative things because we're doing what we don't believe.
right.
We don't believe in this shit, but we have to do it. What she's saying, like you just said, Max, it's counterintuitive. Trust your instincts. If you think going after money is silly, that's because it is silly for you.
Right.
If you think working a 9 to 5 is ridiculous, that's because it's ridiculous for you. And your
Yeah.
instincts are moving you to where your real success is going to be.
Right.
Um, there's a piece here. I'm gonna kind of narrow this down, man, because this chapter just goes so hard. Um, this is the one chapter I literally could have just read the whole chapter, to you
Oh
guys.
yeah.
Um, when she's talking about success, she says creativity is a spiritual practice. It's not something that can be perfected, finished, and then set aside. It is my experience that when we reach the plateau of creative attainment, only to have a certain restlessness set in. In other words, just when we get there, the there disappears.
Mm,
Here's the key, and I'll shut up at this. We are asked to expand in order that we do not contract. We are asked to expand so that we do not contract. Artists are always growing,
yeah.
always growing. Your art form, you're always adding to it, you're always learning, you're never done. So even when I made my first movie, I couldn't imagine ever winning a film festival. Once I won that festival, it was maybe a day and a half before I was like, well, what am I working on next?
Well, yeah. What am I doing now?
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And it is cyclical on purpose and it keeps you growing. It keeps you growing. So reverse engineer that thought. You're never going to get there. You're never ever going to arrive. It doesn't exist. There's nothing to arrive at. This is not this isn't a map where we're going, like Indiana Jones and it shows the plane with the red line. Yeah. That
Yeah.
that's not what we're doing. We
Right.
are allowing the creator to express through us,
Right.
and we just keep growing. And if you will rely on your instincts, your inspiration, the whimsy, the boat in the river,
Yeah.
you'll continue to grow and expand.
And in there you'll find success.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I love how she said, I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but creativity is a spiritual act. I
Yeah.
get it kind of
Yeah.
close. I
Yes.
love that
Yes.
because like the reverence of it is it's real and
Yeah.
it feels that powerful to
Yes.
your soul.
Well, as always, you just segued to the last major point that I wanted to get to in this chapter. And she talks about the zen of sports. I am not a sports guy. I'm not. She's talking about, and it goes on a little much, but she talks about walks. I've always been a big walker, and it's a walking meditation. And I love that she says this. The mistake that us Westerners make is we take meditation as a way to not participate in life. Meditation is meant to be something that you work out throughout the day. And the way that we're created, this is my own opinion and others, we're a spirit in a monkey suit, right? This is a
Yeah.
biological space suit and it's going to dissolve. And if
Mhm.
you don't make this body work, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And if you will make part of your daily practice some form of walking, it's amazing. I know, like, you get a lot of ideas in the hot tub, other people get ideas in the sauna. It's
Mhm.
amazing how many answers. I don't get ideas, I get answers.
Ooh, answers. You're so right. Because I'll have those big eureka moments. Pow.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And I don't get that any other way. Like, my thing in the shower, ideas, 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 right? But when I go walking, these ideas, choop, 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 like Tetris, and it becomes something. And there's just something that we don't understand about moving our little monkey spacesuit
Mhm.
that helps us get out of our head and puts us into motion.
Yeah.
It puts the ideas in. It's taking it from the air and it's starting to bring it into a physical thing.
I
And
love that.
I think most of us struggle with taking ideas and making them happen. Like,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of us do. And the more that any time that I've ever known somebody that is so blocked, they don't do any form of exercise, they don't do any walking, no swimming, nothing. They're just sitting around eating. And this isn't a let's be healthy talk, even though that's pretty important.
Right.
There is something that we need of taking it out of the air through our antenna and getting it into the real world. And it comes through moving our asses, walking,
Yeah.
and answers come to us.
Well, and also thinking about it in like a biological sense, you're getting oxygen and blood to your
Yes.
brain. Yeah, just movement is good.
Yeah.
Uh, I love that.
She gives the definition, one of the definitions of exercise. One of the actual definitions in Webster is the act of bringing into play or realizing in action. That's one of the actual definitions of exercise. So when people
That's
always tell
great.
me to work out and exercise, I'm like, dude, I don't need a six pack. I don't care about pecs. I don't care. It doesn't motivate me.
No,
But when I go jog or I go run or I go walk, it lights me up. And I am
it's true.
prolifically creative when I do that.
I noticed that on my nature walk very recently. The anecdote I was telling you about this last week, my
Yes.
pretty much my artist date,
Yeah.
and just the hearing the rhythm
Yeah.
and all of the sounds of like crunching sand and rock, and
Mm,
my boots as they
yeah. I
brush
can
through
hear
the
it.
meat.
Yeah.
You're having this rhythmic sensory, like Beethoven wrote most of his music
Yeah.
to the rhythm of his
Right.
footsteps.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is on point, man.
Well,
I love this.
For time's sake, I'm gonna end it with this. There, at the end of this chapter, she talks about building your artist altar.
Ooh,
Which,
yes.
by the way, the little project you and I are working on for kids, this is where that came from. I told you I was going to show you guys something just for 2 seconds. Here's my creative altar. Her point is create a space in your house that allows you to practice all like a spiritual practice. And I know that term freaks some people out and makes some people uncomfortable, but it literally is a way to sit down and center and acknowledge that you are a creative being.
Mm,
And I love that she says this. Children love gaudy. They love gaudy, big stuff, big fake jewels, fake
yeah,
jewelry, fake swords. Everything's big, gaudy, and it's fun.
yeah.
So, what most of us do is we try to create something aesthetically pleasing, really nice, super awesome. You're missing the mark. Create a space, and I'm sitting in mine. Every one of these classes have been done in my space. And because I've never done one of these online, I've never been able to show people but pictures. But here's what
Yeah.
I did. I took When my first daughter was born, I bought her furniture and stuff. As she got older, she didn't want that kitty furniture. So I took this is going to be real rough, but I took her desk, her end table, and I turned it into a little meditation table.
What I love the
And
sacred geometry.
oh yeah, I told you I'm a fiend for all of that. On the handles, all this kind of stuff. On the back of it, I put backwards I am, because I do the I am meditation. So what I do is I sit here in this old orange chair that used to belong to my dad's. This is a 1968 chair,
Oh, wow.
and there's a mirror across from me. If you can see that mirror,
Yeah,
I I put this table in front of me and the I am backwards. I can look in the mirror when I open my eyes and I see I am. And
that's
then
cool.
this drawer is just full of little stuff my kids have given me over the years. Little
Cool, man.
little rocks. I have a compass in here that I found while walking one time. It literally looks like if you were to go into a kid's room and open a drawer and find a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And, and
Treasures.
yes, and I beg people to create a space. Make it whimsical, make it silly, make a space that your third grade age Max would just love,
I
you know?
love that. I kind of started to like in my office, like every wall, every surface is covered in like some of my most meaningful creations.
Yeah,
But I want to just now I'm inspired just to go full crazy because also who am I being safe for?
right, right.
Is it because everyone that's in my life, in my physical life,
Yeah,
loves how wild and kooky I am. They want to see this place be really crazy. So
yeah,
I think I'm gonna go wilder.
yeah. Christmas lights,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've always loved is to sit and meditate and remember toys and things that I had when I was little. And
Oh
then I
yeah.
go on eBay and I find it and I buy it. And so
Oh.
I've got I have playing cards from the one of Spielberg. What was Spielberg's Close Encounter of Third
Mhm.
Kind, whatever. I remember seeing that. It was the first time I ever thought about aliens when I was a kid. That sits on my desk. My first video camera is sitting right over here. So I surround myself with these pieces of things that ground me to my childhood. The
That's such a
wonder.
that's such a good idea.
Oh, it's so fun, Max. You got to do it, man. If it was a slingshot, if it was a movie, I've got VHSs laying around where I can see them of Goonies,
Oh yeah.
um, yeah,
I
Conan the
can literally see
Barbarian
the title.
poster. Yeah,
I can literally see the sticker on the title.
yeah, yeah.
It,
Now, tell me if you sit in that space and you just breathe for a little bit and you acknowledge that you're a creative being, you're going to start moving into that flow state. I don't remember who asked, but
yes.
it is the fastest way to get in your creative flow state is to replicate things from your childhood. It
Wow.
it's a hack. It really is. It's like a biohack. You will replicate. Andrew Huberman teaches that when you see things of nostalgia, it releases the same chemicals in your brain that you had when you first experienced it.
Oh
So
man,
the first time I saw Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, I can replicate that feeling every time I see a little Yoda statue on my desk, right?
nice.
So the idea is to play with it and create an environment where it puts you back into that state of flow. You don't have to create the state of flow. You got to put yourself into the existing state of flow.
Yeah, you're just a seed getting into soil. You're getting
That's right.
water. You just got
Just
to be
wait
there.
out in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's really good. Now all I'm thinking about is I had these action figures, like action figures
yeah.
of like, I guess aliens made
Yeah.
of. So my great grandmother, she got a bunch of them because like I was way into aliens, probably way too young. I saw them when I was like maybe 6 to 8 years old. Scared the
Dang.
pants off me, but I loved
Hell
it.
yeah.
Also, I had the biggest crush on Ripley ever.
Who
Oh, I
didn't?
mean, come on,
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver,
I still
shoot.
do. I still
Yeah,
do.
I mean, yeah, you cannot grow that.
No.
But I remember having like toy aliens. I'm gonna go on eBay and see what I can find.
And I'm telling you, if you'll sit, like you're getting ideas now, but if
Mhm.
you'll sit and kind of really in the hot tub, think about your childhood and toys,
Yeah.
you'll remember stuff that you haven't thought about for so long. Like my brother was 5 years older than me. He had a $6 million man doll that you could look through the back of his head through a bionic eye.
Yeah.
And I could never play with it. He wouldn't let me play with it. So I went and got it. And that sits on my desk, dude. You know?
That's
And
awesome.
and let me tell you, when somebody walks in and they're like, what is all this stuff? It's really cool to be like, well, that reminds me of the first time I ever thought about making movies. That
Yeah.
reminds me of the first time it'll bring life back to you. And I beg people to do it. It's a great practice, man.
I'm excited to do this. I need to start looking at my space a little differently.
So the exercise for this week, because I know we went through a lot. I mean, we've been on here for 87 minutes.
Right.
The exercise for this week isn't in the book. Think of a toy you had, and it can't just be any toy. It needs to be a toy that you were fascinated with. The toy that you would go to bed holding, or the one you would take in the car with you, or you took to show and tell, or something that your grandma gave you. It needs to present an energy in your body when you think about it,
I
and then
love that.
go get it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, is that heart or hot?
I don't know.
I think that is I heart your doll speech. I'm not sure.
Gotcha. This is triumphant. I'm so excited for this and just all these lessons. I mean, she's just such a good writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, week 11 rocked me.
Yeah. And I skipped through it. I know we went super long, but I just please
Y-
read the
Yeah,
chapter. You
you have
know.
to read it, and and
Eh,
this is just nice to have the talking points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I-
look for
it-
dragons.
yeah.
I think
And
that's what's been Dungeons and Dragons for me. Finding that out
right.
kind of late,
Yeah.
and that's just been such a good outlet of
Yeah.
just joy, creativity, and just childlike just wonder
Yeah.
in my life.
Snuffleupagus. Hell yeah. So I really think that next week is our last class. We're gonna do chapter 12. Believe it or not, we're already done. We're gonna do chapter
Crazy.
12, and then we're gonna wrap up with a few last comments. But what I'd like is if anyone can next week tell us what you ordered, what of your toys. Everyone can come in, and I'll bring some of mine, and we're gonna have a show and tell. I'm gonna show you some of my Star Wars toys, some of that stuff. You guys
Okay,
bring some stuff and let us know what those things are that you got. It'll be super fun.
that'll be a fun activity. Oh, I'm
Oh my
excited.
God, my sister had the big strawberry with all the strawberry shortcakes in it. You crack that thing open, and it was like blew you away with all the smells. I
I
totally
remember
remember
the
it.
smell.
Hell yeah, I totally remember it. I have a purple pieman sitting on my desk. I'll show you next week. Purple pieman, Huckleberry Finn. They were the only two boys in the strawberry shortcake universe, and I bought them like 2 years ago. The bed
That's
series.
incredible. Too good, man. Well, I always leave these I don't even call them lessons. They're just kind of talks about the artist way, but I always leave literally with my face hurting
Yeah.
with from smiling. My heart has grown 2 sizes. This is just the best, man.
Yeah. Well, I love you for it, man. Thank you. It's just been such an awesome experience to have access to your friends and family, and we're all together. And next week we're going to talk about creative circle. The classes
Ooh,
might end, but the connection doesn't have to end. We can keep that
yes.
going for sure.
Oh yeah, and like the creative workshop on the Discord is always gonna be there for,
Yeah.
especially if as people listen to this 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, you're so welcome, Catherine.
for sure. And
It's
you guys, everyone's been awesome. So I'll see you guys next week. Cabbage Patch, bring it. Everyone bring your dolls, man. Everyone bring your toys.
right on. No, thank you guys for being here. All right.
All right. I'll see you
Dude,
guys
thank you
next
so
week.
much for your guidance. This has been amazing.
Of course, man. I love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Love you too. See ya.